The sky above Tehran turned white before it turned black. A wave of detonations rolled across the eastern districts of the Iranian capital in the pre-dawn hours, not in quick succession, but in a sustained, deliberate rhythm that shook windows across entire neighborhoods and sent columns of smoke rising above the skyline. U.S.-Israeli drones moved unseen through the urban corridors, and somewhere below them, Iranian air defense batteries activated, their radar sweeping, their crews scrambling. The booming did not stop. It compounded. Each new explosion arrived before the echo of the last had fully faded, creating a wall of sound that Al Jazeera's correspondent on the ground, Suhaib al-Assa, described as something he had never witnessed before in the Iranian capital. An assault that was, in his exact word, unprecedented. From Khorramabad in the west to Tabriz in the northwest, from Bandar Abbas in the south to Isfahan and Ahvaz in the interior, the strikes extended far beyond Tehran. A country was being struck from end to end. Simultaneously, warning sirens cut through the night air in Bahrain. Missile interceptions lit up the skies above Riyadh, and in Abu Dhabi, shrapnel from an intercepted ballistic missile injured a civilian near Al Dhafra Air Base. This was not simply another exchange in a months-long conflict. It was a coordinated, multi-theater military campaign of a scale the Middle East has not seen in decades. According to Israeli military statements, the operation began when the Israeli Defense Forces announced they had initiated a wide-scale wave of strikes targeting infrastructure across the Iranian capital, Tehran. Israeli military spokesmen did not elaborate on the specific targets in their initial release, but hours later, the Israeli military confirmed it had launched a second distinct round of attacks, a deliberate escalation layered onto an already active campaign. The United States was simultaneously engaged. The U.S. military said it had specifically targeted a turbine engine production facility located in Qom province, in north-central Iran. According to American officials, this site was used in the production of drone and aircraft components directly linked to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, Iran's most powerful military arm, and the organization at the heart of Tehran's military-industrial apparatus. The head of U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, Admiral Brad Cooper, stated in a broadcast interview that Iranian forces had been launching missiles and drones from populated civilian areas, thereby making those areas legitimate military targets. Admiral Cooper provided no independent evidence for this claim. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, addressing the situation publicly, said Israel and the United States were, in his words, well on their way to achieving their war goals. Those goals, Israeli and American officials have said, encompass dismantling Iran's nuclear weapons program, destroying its ballistic missile infrastructure, and severing Tehran's financial and military support to armed proxy organizations across the region. An Israeli military spokesperson, Brigadier General Efi Defrin, stated plainly that more weeks of fighting against Iran and Lebanon's Hezbollah are expected. But the story quickly became far more complicated. Before we break down the full strategic implications of this multi-front assault, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss the latest dramatic developments shaping global geopolitics. According to Iran's state-aligned Fars news agency, the strikes being described by Israeli and American officials as precision military operations were, on the ground, hitting residential neighborhoods. A residential building in the city of Khorramabad, located west of Tehran, was struck directly. One child was killed, multiple residents were wounded. In Tabriz, Iran's second-largest city in the northwest, at least 6 people were killed in strikes on homes, according to Fars. Majid Farshi, the Director General of Crisis Management for East Azerbaijan Province, confirmed 2 separate deadly attacks struck Tabriz that same night. Al Jazeera's correspondent Tawhid Asadi, reporting from within Tehran, described receiving reports of explosions across a wide range of Iranian cities. According to Asadi, 1 person was killed when a radio station was struck in Bandar Abbas, a major port city on the Persian Gulf. Sounds of massive explosions were reported in Isfahan, in Karaj, and in Ahvaz. In Ahvaz, according to reporting from inside the country, a hospital sustained an impact from the strikes. The Iranian Red Crescent Society released figures that placed the broader toll in stark relief. According to its assessment, more than 80,000 civilian building units across Iran have been struck throughout the course of the conflict, with a significant portion fully demolished. That figure, the Red Crescent stated explicitly, includes hospitals, schools, academic institutions, and the facilities of the Red Crescent Society itself. Iran's Ministry of Health placed the total national death toll from the war above 1,500. In Israel, 15 people have been killed by Iranian strikes. Iran's semi-official Mehr news agency carried a formal statement from the country's foreign ministry directly contradicting President Donald Trump's claim that Washington and Tehran had engaged in productive diplomatic conversations. The foreign ministry stated unequivocally that no dialogue had taken place. Iranian officials claimed Trump's announcement of productive talks was designed to reduce energy prices in American markets and to buy political time for the implementation of further military operations. Between these narratives lies a complex reality that analysts are still working to understand. What does the Strait of Hormuz mean for the global energy system? The answer is simple. It is the single most critical choke point for oil and gas on Earth. The Strait of Hormuz is a narrow passage of water connecting the Persian Gulf to the Gulf of Oman, and from there to the rest of the world's shipping lanes. At its narrowest point, the strait is only 21 miles wide. But through that 21-mile corridor, approximately 1/5 of all global oil supply passes, every tanker delivering crude from Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, Iraq, and Iran to markets in Asia, Europe, and the Americas must transit this passage. There is no bypass. There is no alternative route for supertankers operating at commercial scale. Iran has now effectively closed the Strait of Hormuz to hostile flag vessels, and shipping companies have responded by steering entirely clear of the area. Nearly all tanker traffic through the strait has ceased. The implications for global energy markets are not hypothetical. They are immediate, measurable, and severe. The turbine engine production facility in Qom, struck by U.S. forces, was not merely a factory. According to the U.S. military, it was a linchpin in the IRGC's drone supply chain, producing the components that allow Iran to manufacture and deploy the drone arsenal it has used to strike targets from the Red Sea to the Persian Gulf to Israel itself. Eliminating that facility degrades Iran's capacity to produce the weapons with which it has been waging asymmetric warfare across the region. Iran's nuclear enrichment site at Natanz, meanwhile, was struck on Saturday, a strike Israel has declined to officially claim, and which the Pentagon declined to comment on entirely. The International Atomic Energy Agency has confirmed that the bulk of Iran's estimated 972 pounds of enriched uranium, the material at the heart of Western fears about a nuclear weapons program, currently lies beneath rubble at the Isfahan facility, a site struck in earlier rounds of the campaign. The IRGC's Khatam al-Anbiya headquarters announced that its forces had struck Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia and the U.S. Fifth Fleet's home base in Bahrain, using both missiles and drones. The message was clear. No American military installation within range of Iranian weapons and no regional power hosting those installations would be exempt from direct retaliation. The military response was immediate and widening. Warning sirens activated across Bahrain and Kuwait as the IRGC launched its retaliatory waves. Saudi Arabia's Ministry of Defense confirmed its forces had intercepted a ballistic missile targeting Riyadh and had destroyed multiple drones over the kingdom's oil-rich eastern province. In Abu Dhabi, a ballistic missile was intercepted over an industrial zone near Al Dhafra Air Base, a major U.S. military installation, and the shrapnel from that interception struck and injured an Indian national living in the UAE. Hezbollah, the Lebanese militant organization aligned with Tehran, joined the assault simultaneously. Al Jazeera's Nida Ibrahim, reporting from the occupied West Bank, said sirens had sounded in northern Israel within the hour as Israeli authorities assessed that Hezbollah and Iran were conducting a coordinated joint attack on the country's north. A Hezbollah strike killed a civilian in the northern Israeli town of Misgav-Am. Lebanese authorities have said Israeli strikes have now killed more than 1,000 people in Lebanon and displaced over 1 million. That military escalation has consequences far beyond the battlefield. 3 of the Gulf's most critical aviation hubs, Dubai International Airport, the world's busiest by passenger volume, as well as airports in Abu Dhabi and Bahrain, sustained damage from Iranian strikes. Kuwait's airport was also affected. Airlines suspended service, thousands of flights were canceled, and tens of thousands of passengers were stranded. The simultaneous closure of the Gulf's 3 principal air hubs is, analysts noted, without modern precedent, with cascading consequences for global air cargo, logistics, and trade. Oil prices rose. Equity markets fell, shipping insurance costs surged, Asian markets opened to choppy and volatile trading as the latest wave of strikes landed. Fadi Birol, the executive director of the International Energy Agency, issued a public warning on Monday that the Middle East situation is, in his words, very severe, and then went further, stating that the current crisis is worse, in aggregate, than the 2 combined energy shocks of the 1970s that reshaped the Western world's relationship with oil. Iran's parliamentary speaker, Mohammad Bagher Khalibaf, escalated the diplomatic and economic threat dimension of the conflict directly on Monday. Writing publicly, Khalibaf stated that if Iran's power plants and energy infrastructure are attacked, then the vital desalination and energy facilities of Gulf nations, the infrastructure that produces the drinking water and electricity on which millions of Gulf residents depend, would be considered, in his words, legitimate targets and would be irreversibly destroyed. Within the United States, the domestic political dimension of the crisis is sharp and unresolved. President Trump, who set a 48-hour ultimatum over the weekend threatening to obliterate Iran's power plants if the Strait of Hormuz was not reopened, announced on Monday that he was extending the deadline by 5 days. He wrote in all capitals on his Truth Social platform that conversations with Iran had been very good and productive, and could lead to a complete and total resolution. Iranian authorities stated publicly that no such conversations had occurred. And in Israel, officials are sending a distinct message of their own, that the concern is not escalation, but premature American restraint. Israeli officials, according to Al Jazeera's reporting from the West Bank, are actively working to signal Washington that they intend to press the campaign forward regardless. Israel and the United States maintain that the strikes on Tehran and cities across Iran are targeted military operations against the IRGC's infrastructure, its weapons production capacity, and the mechanisms by which Iran has sustained 4 weeks of offensive military operations across the region. Iran maintains that the attacks are destroying civilian neighborhoods, killing children, demolishing hospitals and schools, and constitute an assault on a civilian population that has now lost more than 1,500 of its people since the conflict began on February 28th. What is not in dispute is the scale. More than 80,000 civilian structures struck, 3 Gulf airports closed, the Strait of Hormuz effectively sealed, energy markets in turmoil, Hezbollah engaged, nuclear sites under rubble, power plants now explicitly on the table as targets on both sides of the conflict. These are not the metrics of a contained military exchange. They are the metrics of a regional war that is expanding in scope with each passing day. The conflict that began on February 28th has already killed more than 2,000 people, disrupted the energy supply chain of the entire planet, and drawn the military forces of the United States directly into combat operations inside a sovereign country the size of Alaska. Analysts at the Center for Strategic and International Studies noted this week that the Middle East is passing through what they described as a hinge moment, a period of transformation from the regional order that defined the last several decades into something not yet fully defined and not yet fully understood. The killing of Iran's supreme leader, the rubble of Natanz, the drones over Riyadh, these are not footnotes. They are the opening chapters of a new chapter of history whose shape remains unclear. What is clear is that neither side has found the off-ramp. Neither the extended American deadline nor the Iranian Foreign Ministry's denials of diplomatic contact have produced a pause. The machines of war are running, and the chain of mutual threat, power plants for power plants, straight for straight, drone for drone, has not found its breaking point. Will this extraordinary wave of strikes across Iran remain a brutal but contained chapter in a finite conflict? Or is it the threshold moment of something far larger and far more permanent? Stay tuned for further updates as this situation continues to develop. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss the latest dramatic geopolitical developments shaping the world.